also aims to share some advice, offer some advice and practical tips on how to remain productive during this Ramadan. We know that this Ramadan is also a special Ramadan because of the circumstance, because of the, let's say, strange time that we're living in right now due to the COVID-19 emergency. But hopefully we will make sure that this session will be beneficial. We have some experts and mashallah successful people here, and I am really looking forward to introduce our guests now. So first of all, we have Dr. Ustad and Amu Fadi Itani. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Muslim Charities from the UK. We also have Fatima Halawa, and she's head of trainings department in FEMYSO. And we also have Ilyas Shirali, and he's a diplomat and works in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. So welcome and thank you for being here today with us. So first of all, we would like to actually start to warm up a little bit and start with something quite simple that is related to the concept of productivity. We know that there are a lot of books, we know that there are a lot of material, resources, YouTube videos around the concept of productivity and self-discipline. So starting with something really simple, I would like to ask each one of you to give us a definition, in your opinion, based on your experience of what actually is productivity. Started from Dr. Fadi, and then going to Fatima, and then to Ilyas.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله جزاكم الله خير for having me today. Just a clarification, I'm not doctor yet, so
Ustad.
جزاكم الله خير. Although thank you for the title, we can add it to the to the collection. May Allah accept from all of us, inshallah, and I pray you and your families are all well and safe. I think we all been tested during these days and times, and probably in our lifetime we come across what we call it. We are all in a lockdown, and productivity for us is in a way is tested. I personally believe that actually Ramadan is really the month of productivity. And if we look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, that most of the battles he basically was involved in, most of the amount of ibadah and the efforts put are always triple, if not more than that, in Ramadan. So in a way, the misconception that Ramadan is not the month of of productivity is a counterproductive to the spirit of Ramadan itself, because we are encouraged, and this is a season for us to take advantage of, and I don't think we should really miss it, especially when we all reminded that it is an opportunity being given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not sure if we will be meeting another Ramadan, and we just seen how many of our brothers and sisters missed this beautiful month. They were with us last Ramadan, we were praying together, we were fasting together, we were breaking fast together, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called them in the last few weeks. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to extend our lives to see another Ramadan, and if take from this life to be taken on the best and the good, happy ending, inshallah ta'ala. Being productive for us in everything we do is basically an important concept of our deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always reminding us, we must always do and put the effort, and we must do more efforts during these times, because there is no excuse for us to say, oh, I can't do, or the situation is difficult, I cannot really balance between work and now fasting and doing tarawih at home and help at home and so on. I think productivity for us is, and it should be always, a slogan for our brothers and sisters, inshallah.
Barakallah feek, Ustad Fadi, for your Ustad Fadi, not doctor yet, for your answer. It's actually, yes, it's a unique Ramadan, and the concept of productivity should be something that it should be like our slogan, and something that pushes us to to kind of like be the best version of ourselves. I would go now to Fatima.
Ustaz Fadi, you're always a doctor to us, so just gonna add جزاك الله خير نورهان رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I think what's really important, just adding on to what Ustaz Fadi said, it's the concept of like how we look at productivity, right? You literally said there's so many concepts and so many stuff that are written around it. But I think specifically for me, or specifically into how I look at it, I think productivity is not a concrete thing. And I think it differs from one person to the next. So what may work for me may not necessarily work for you, Nurhan, may not necessarily work for Ammo Fadi, may not necessarily work for any others. And I think that's really critical, and it's really important to understand that. I think there's key elements that we need to ensure that are that we work towards in our life, whatever it is. But I think productivity is a state that's constantly being changed, and it changes in regarding to where we are in our life. So let's say, for example, the Fatima when I was in uni and university, and whether I was doing like my undergrad or my PhD, is completely different to the Fatima I am now. And it's a state where I'm constantly trying to reevaluate, to re-understand where I'm at and how can I develop and how can I grow, but how can I increase my productivity in that sense. And I think one of the things that always is key to me, because sometimes I'm like, I aim really high, and then I think the thing that really calls back to me is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, أحب الأعمال إلى الله أقلها وإن دامت. So it's like the best of deeds to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the ones that are small but are consistent. So how do we increase our productivity? It's through these means. It's introducing small things into our life and creating them to allow ourselves to be able then to be productive. It's like a step-by-step frame that we're growing up into. And I think, subhanAllah, specifically during this Ramadan, I think what's really key is how we look at productivity, and how it's almost like Ramadan is a time that comes up and it's like messes up with our whole entire system. How we eat, how we concentrate, how we do. And it's specifically a time that we can, similar to what Amu Fadi said, it's a time that actually should increase our productivity in, because it's like the cup that we're trying to fill that will allow us then to drink from throughout the year. And I think in that way, then to me, I'm like, okay, wow, how do I fill this cup, and what can I do during this time, and how do I increase small steps to be able then to look at it. And while this is a unique opportunity, it's also an opportunity to really start really understanding where we each are, but also reflecting on our own productivity and what our productivity means to us, and how we can each look into that and develop that.
Thank you, Fatima. You actually raised some really great points to when it comes to the concept of productivity, saying that it's not the same for everyone, that we should not follow the same, let's say, protocol or the same advices, because everyone is different. Everyone has a different context and different priorities and different responsibilities. And I would say also like different personalities as well. And this like plays a role in trying to find let's say, our productive lifestyle. Let's now go to Ilyas and discover his definition of productivity.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Nurhain. It's always a pleasure really to be invited by FEMYSO. So thank you guys for having me be part of this panel. Also because there's always a very relaxed atmosphere in FEMYSO events, which is very pleasant to be part of. I think, I mean, speaking as sort of the third person, it's difficult because a lot has been said already. So what I do think is very important, and forgive me perhaps for making this an extremely like semantic point, but I think it's actually important to emphasize that Islamic productivity, or the way we sort of view the idea of productivity through an Islamic lens, is a fundamentally different notion than the manner in which we view productivity in modern life, right? So our Ramadan productivity is not sort of derived from notions of efficiency or notions of like high return of investment, kind of the classical way in which productivity is viewed in. And this is because I think this creates unnecessary anxiety on us. So our productivity, I think, to answer your question, is just knowing throughout that in our striving, in these incremental steps that Fatima mentioned, that perfection ultimately belongs to Allah, and that our constant shortcomings are blessings that actually humble us, right? So as long as there's this constant striving, while knowing that perfection belongs to Allah, I think we are being productive.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elias, for this answer. And also thank you, all of you, for kind of like helping us set in some let's say some standards and understand the basic of productivity. So if we want to summarize a little bit, we can say that first of all, Ramadan, as Ustad Fadi said, is a unique month for productivity. It's the concept of productivity and being productive is something that we should carry on in our lives. As a slogan, I would like to quote this because it seems to be like really, really important. And also what Fatima said, and I have maybe like a follow-up question on this, is that you said that there are different advices, different types of productivities, because we're different, different people, so we shouldn't follow the same approach. What would you say, and what advice would you give to these, let's say, young people that are willing to find their productive lifestyle, and how can they figure out what's the best way to be and to feel productive?
Is that aimed at me, or just?
Yeah, I was like following up with the question, because I had it in mind, and then.
No,
So,
that's fine. I think ultimately, what I always say specifically, like for the youth or whatever, is I think we're all created for a purpose, and we're all created for reasons, and we all have our unique purposes, and we all have our unique reasons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for. So each one of us is unique in their own sense. So I come from a family, alhamdulillah, that's quite big, and each one of us is very unique to the other, and how we're contributing to the world or how we're doing to the world is so different in many ways. And I think it's acknowledging and realizing that okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for a purpose, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for a reason, but we also have different uniqueness to that. And I think a lot of the times there comes pressure from that, and feeling, okay, what is our uniqueness, what is our how can we be productive in the best possible way that suits, for example, Fatima or suits Nurhan. And I think the first thing, and I say this to myself first, is actually being kind to yourself, is acknowledging that it's okay to not always know the answer. It's not always a know-all, that you have to, okay, this is the way to it. And it's lovely what Elias said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's just a perfect, like only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. And once we put that into mind, it kind of eases the pressure out of us. And I think in a way when we're created in this world, to not look at the results, but rather on how we are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us on what we do. So like our actions and how we take them, but not the results of that. And I think one of the main things is not following a certain structure that fits. So like, let's say, for example, being able to observe someone, or someone giving you tips on like, okay, this is the best way that you should be productive. I think you should try and make it unique to yourself and suit your needs. So like, for example, we have someone who works really well in early morning. And then sometimes we feel like, oh, there's a pressure that all of us need to work in the early mornings, but rather being okay the fact that, no, some of us work better at night, but not forgetting that there's key responsibilities within our deen that we must fulfill. So it's like, let's say, for example, that I'm not staying up at night and then missing Fajr prayer, or missing the main necessities of what I need to be do. Although, like, let's say if there's the hadith, khayru ummati fi bukuriha, so our ummah is the best in like the best of in the waker. Sorry, the best of our ummah are the early birds, in a sense, in me trying to translate. So then to me, I think it's almost like, I think the critical tip for me would be like, actually be kind to yourself, but also understand what productivity means to you, but also still ensuring that you must not forget different elements within your life, and how do you introduce them. Like, let's say, for example, whether it's family, whether it's giving time to yourself, because sometimes we can get so caught up that we don't actually give time to our soul, our nafs, our body to relax, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna li badanika alayka haqq, so your body has a right on you as well. So yeah.
Thank you for the points that you've raised, and actually the critical tips that you've just given in your answer. And like, sometimes we're too harsh on ourselves, and sometimes we feel like that we should be productive the whole time, and counting maybe like the minutes in which we were not productive and feeling so bad and so guilty about ourselves. But it's actually really important to be lenient with ourselves sometimes, and to just like as you said, that perfection belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to us. But it's actually really good, to aspire to be a good productive person, but at the same time finding the balance between being lenient with ourselves and also like managing our energy and our time in terms to be productive. And now I would like to follow up with our second question, which is basically about still the concept of productivity. Because when we think about this concept, sometimes we think about, you know, the time that we dedicate. We dedicate a lot of time into being productive, and sometimes we forget about the importance of the quality of the work that we do. Like, how do we actually work? What is our working style and so on? So whether we are like students or workers and so on, but specifically because the majority of our audience, they like, we're always students, you know, even if we start working, we're still studying and learning something. So some students are maybe more quicker in picking up certain informations and in the learning process. Other students, they are slower students, they are slower learners like myself. We need to dedicate like more time into studying certain chapters or picking up certain informations and so on. So this sometimes makes us feel that we're not as productive and we're actually sometimes wasting time. So what is your advice to this maybe like category of students, and how can they kind of like be productive? Let's start this time from maybe change the round so Ilyas doesn't feel the last one. Let's do Ilyas, Fatima, and then Ustad Fadi.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think it's a very difficult question, actually, simply because there's no silver bullet to answer this really. But I think what's important for students or also individuals who somehow struggle with this notion of always like not always being as productive as they hope or they wish. I think it's important just to realize that, especially in Ramadan as well, that ultimately it's a marathon, right? So if I start my first day of Ramadan by staying up all night and reading Quran, then by day 5, I'll be absolutely exhausted and done. So I think for me personally, I mean, the aim is to create something sustainable or to develop very small habits that I can take on after the month of Ramadan as well. So my advice would actually follow in line of what has previously been said already, which is, you know, let's not be too harsh on ourselves. Incremental change is really what it's about, and it's really about this constant striving towards bettering yourself, sort of today being better than you were yesterday. And I think again, dependent on your definition of productivity, you can reach a whole way, you can make huge steps. And I think what's also something which is maybe important is that what I try to do, especially in the month of Ramadan, because I'm working full time, right? So you don't always have the time to actually be as productive sort of as you wish. But I try to infuse sort of even the most mundane interactions with sort of some sort of divine presence, right? And I think this still gives me a feeling of, okay, I'm maintaining a sort of standard level of productivity throughout the day, even though I'm going on with my regular work. And the hadith that Fatima mentioned is something that also really keeps me going. Know that we take up good deeds only as much as we're able, and that the best deeds are those that are done regularly, even if they're few. So this would be my advice.
Thank you, Elias, for your answer. Actually, it's really, really interesting. And I'll follow up very quickly and a comment with for that answer, is that there are like actually a lot of Oxford and Harvard studies that say that it takes a human being from 20 to 30 days to develop habits. And you've mentioned that the fact in order to learn about productivity and to be productive is maybe trying to set some small goals and start from them. And Ramadan, subhanAllah, it has actually 30 days, and it's a huge opportunity for all of us to start developing these habits. But it's also our responsibility to continue developing and working on these habits even after Ramadan. Something that Ustad Fadi says a lot is be Rabbani and not Ramadani. right? So this is something that I remember from the previous webinar, because this month is an opportunity that we have to take advantage of, but it's not only about the month itself, it's about our ability to see what can we do during this month and how can we develop ourselves during this month, but also like in order to be productive and to keep the same habits also in the next months as well. So now let's go to Fatima and then Ustad Fadi.
Okay, so I feel like I have like a privilege that I'm in the center of this.
We'll change that in the next questions.
I think just adding on to what Ilyas said, I think there's something very critical into terms of like what was mentioned specifically in relation to students. And I think it's a really harsh reality that we start comparing ourselves to others, right? So something that is very was very important, but also strikes a thing for me. We said some of us grasps our information a lot quicker, while others may be a lot slower. And I don't like to use that. It's actually a terminology that we shouldn't be using, because the essence of it is no one is actually slow, but we all have our own different unique styles of learning. And in that way, we all need to be okay with what suits our needs and what is okay for us. And I think that's very, very critical, because then it's a notion on how we perceive ourselves and how we then say, oh my God, but I'm not producing what I should be producing. I think each of us work uniquely, and each of us have a unique way of working. And I think it's just grasping that and being okay with that and letting it sit in within ourselves and being like, okay, this is me as Fatima. That's how I learn. I need to reread over the things. But in that way, in the longer process, some people who may learn quicker forget quickly, but people who like adapt in that process can have that. So I think it's very critical to understand our own unique way of like learning. But I think adapting it to what you said, and specifically to what Ustaz Fadi said, is like being and also Ilyas, is like being a student, like a Rabbani and not Ramadani. And I think, how do we be Rabbani? So even to what Ilyas had mentioned, is like, okay, he's someone who's constantly in work. So how do I produce that? And how do I put the intention in what I'm doing is purely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake? And then asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the things that I do is to be able to give me that productivity, or to be able to allow me to work effectively during that time. Because in anything we do, whether it's the food that we eat, whether it's the sleep that we sleep, it can actually be a Rabbani act that we do if we put the right intention and the right mindset that we have. And I think that's very, very critical. And a lot of the times we forget to do that. And I'm someone also that. So it's like, how do I bring back even the basics of what I'm doing? And subhanAllah, in a way, Ramadan shifts our perception to be able to do that. It's like we take away everything and we fill that cup spiritually, and spiritually connecting with Rabbil Alameen, spiritually connecting with our own selves, spiritually connecting, okay, why were we created? How do we build a relationship with the Quran? How do we build relationships with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and really talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking. So I think the main thing that always comes to me is, regardless of how we are in life, or where we are, or our different unique learning styles, is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to really guide, to really give us the strength to be able to do that. So if I'm sitting, before I sit, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this a productive revision session, a productive meeting, productive sleep. So that way, once I feed into everything, it becomes almost like a holistic point of view, that we're looking at it from every different angle. So yeah, I think that's the main thing. I
think it's actually a great point. I really like the way that you reframed it in terms, of the different, like maybe studying styles and so on, and the fact that we should accept that maybe like we are different, and we have some advantages in some certain like aspects of our lives, but we have disadvantages and so on, like still in this, let's say, studying process, as we may say. But also the fact that you mentioned that we have to leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end. And I would also say the way that I try to focus maybe like on my studies is think that every like chapter or every page that we read and so on is an act of adoring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as an act of ibadah itself. And there are a lot of different du'as that we can use to, like, before studying or before working or before like aiming to be productive. There's, for example, اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي, before, I don't know, presentations or whatsoever. So thank you for that. And now we go to Ustad Fadi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. جزاكم الله خير. I think there is a mention in the athar, which means is not really a hadith, but is mean a good reminder for us. We say, whoever his 2 days are equal is a real loser. And I think this for us is a motivational thing, that we need to make sure that we always progress and do different things and make sure that the day today is better than yesterday for us, and tomorrow, inshallah, hopefully we put our efforts to do better. And the other one is لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها, which basically to explain that yes, we are not all the same, and we learn at different levels, and we have different efforts and the way we tackle things. But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, will not ask us to do more than what we can, because each one of us, his or her limit is known and different to other people. And which basically is an excellent reminder from Fatima. She said earlier, is we all different and we should do things in a different way, which is true. Because at the moment, for example, what suits Ilyas or Fatima is not maybe suitable for me, and the other way around. So in a way that each one of us, my 100%, it could be 80% of someone else, by the way, and so on. So and like now, for example, when we look at Ramadan, and especially for our young people and the students who are revising exams, project assignments, and so on, and someone send you really a timetable, say, why don't you follow this in Ramadan, because it will really improve your productivity and so on. It's good, but you know, those tables or those formulas are not really good for everyone, and we don't have really one size fits all. Our different sizes is not going to fit, you know, the one timetable that we have. We need to do our own timetables as per our abilities and so on. But what is more important is we, despite the fact, and you said you like me, Nurhan, I'm a slow learner. You know, I actually takes time to learn. But I actually realized over time, and reminded by our teachers and our scholars and shuyukh, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given each one of us different kind of skills. That what Fatima is good at, I'm not. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me and blessed me with the skills and management of time and so on that is different to others. And this is for us an acknowledgement and appreciation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given each one of us different blessings and different ni'mah. And those skills are, sometimes I have something others they don't, and others they have something I don't. And this is something we need to always acknowledge, and to feel that we've been blessed to have the blessings we have individually, and not to always compare ourselves that, oh, mashallah, she got A's, she got A+, she got, you know. No, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessing. But at the same time, you cannot say, oh, this is my abilities, and whatever I do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me whatever results, when we stop doing or putting the efforts. And this is also sometimes is a counterproductive, that we set ourselves to fail, and then we say, oh Allah, why I failed? Why I didn't do better? Why I do much? And like, for example, now, we are all being blessed with the month of Ramadan. And as I said earlier, this is an opportunity. I'm not sure if I will be able to meet you after, you know, today or maybe next year. And this is for us is like a season. Let's go for it. Let's push ourselves and do as much as we can as per our own abilities and per our own programs. Allahu A'lam.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad Fadi. You mentioned something that is really interesting, and something that I think we should all bear in mind, that we are all different, and at the same time, like لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها as well. You know, the fact that Allah wouldn't give us burden or like, let's say, a task or something that we have to do, responsibility in our life, that it's out of our control, that we're not able to do. That's something that I think it's really important to bear in mind. But also there's I think an ayah in the Quran, in Surah Al-Isra, maybe ayah 84, that says كل يعمل على شاكلته, which is basically that everyone has to work on their predisposition, like the word shakila, which means like form, shape. It could be also translated by talent or predisposition, and it basically alludes to the fact that we are different. We have different, let's say, personalities, but also different talents that we have to kind of like work on. And maybe this is where we should, let's say, start reflecting on, in terms of finding like ourselves, our identities, but also like our productiveness as well. So from here we go to another question, which is specifically about like Ramadan, and it's a question, of course, for our three guests. So is it possible, in your opinion, for a modern Muslim man or a woman to be spiritually, physically, and socially productive during Ramadan in general, but especially during this Ramadan, which is a different Ramadan? We're all more or less in lockdown, where like our lifestyle and our like responsibilities have been affected by the outbreak of COVID-19, by the preventive measures, and so on. So my question is it possible for a modern Muslim man and woman to be socially, spiritually, and physically productive during Ramadan? Let's start this time from Fatima, and then we see who's next.
I think, like you mentioned, Nurhan, it's a very unique opportunity for us. The fact that we're all locked in, very, very different to the essence that a lot of us, there was a sense of a community that was created specifically during Ramadan. And now we've kind of like lost touch with that. And in a way, we've lost touch with kind of like getting in different elements that would have potentially helped us to be able to, let's say, socially, spiritually, and physically connect during Ramadan. But I think what's really, really crucial, and I think it's so important specifically during this Ramadan, is the uniqueness of it and how do we take advantage of it. So when you ask me, can we do this? I think my simple answer would be yes, but I think realistically speaking, we need to evaluate what is the yes, right? So like, how do we evaluate yes? For me, I think I think it's really crucial to understand that Ramadan comes in a very specific time, and what we may need to be giving, like, let's say, for example, at different times in our year, in the year, to different elements. I think Ramadan becomes crucial in our spirituality, and how do we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how do we ensure that connectedness remains. And I think it's very, very critical. It's ensuring that, okay, how can I, as Fatima, be able to connect with the Quran, like شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. So this is the month that the Quran was revealed in. So how do I connect with the Quran? How do I connect with my ibadat? How do I connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because ultimately, if I'm not connecting with Rabb al-Alameen, and if I'm not spiritually being able to connect, then it becomes really difficult for me to connect socially and physically, because I ask Allah then subhanahu wa ta'ala during this specific time to be able to allow me and to give me that energy to be able to put my time also into spiritually connecting, but also into physically connecting. Like now, whereas a lot of Ramadan we would have been quite distracted by, like, being able to go out and, like, let's say, for example, to connect with the outside world. We're also connecting internally, and it might be difficult for some of us who are not with our families, but also, alhamdulillah, like, we have the possibility of connecting through our phone, like through this, like, now we can call our family who my like, let's say my external family who lives across, I can literally call them with a phone call and see them and being able to spiritually connect. Whereas before we would have, like, just written the message and that was it. But now it's like taking different measures and ensuring how do we remain in that way. And I think ultimately as well, it's like, it may become really difficult for us to motivate ourselves to become spiritually connected or socially connected or physically connected. But I think ultimately for each one of us, it's very unique. And I think ultimately we really need to tap in to what motivates me, or what encourages me to really get out there. So it's like after like looking for the like futuristics. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created each of us khulafa on this earth. So right, we're each we each have a responsibility to what we said, and what similar to what Ustaz Fadi said, it's like, how do we continuously develop ourselves? So yes, we're each unique, but how do we continuously develop ourselves? And in developing ourselves, this is the time to actually really dig deeper and understand, okay, what as Fatima, how can I be motivated even when everything around me is locked down? How can I ensure that? What can I do? And for each one of us, it's a different method and it's a different way. But ensuring that we actually connect internally becomes key during this time, and becomes key during Ramadan. Nurhan, I don't think we hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for your complete and satisfying answer, Fatima. It's actually really important that we take in consideration that this month, it's the month of the Quran. We have to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. We have to connect with the Quran more. But this doesn't mean that it's like this is only about like the spirituality, because spirituality involves different things. It could also involve family commitments. It could involve, for example, let's say helping someone, or like different kind of things that could be part of this as well. Because I also like something that we hear a lot is our religion is complete, and it's not only about connecting, to God and reading like only like the Quran and so on, but because the teachings that we learn from the Quran and so on, they teach us to be let's say productive in different areas of our lives. Yeah. So with this, I think we have to go now to Ustad Fadi, and maybe now Ilyas after.
Okay. I think we, a few days before, or a week or two before Ramadan, we were all concerned how this Ramadan is going to look like and what we're going to do and so on. And in a way, we were a bit, if it's right to use this word, depressed of how we're going to now manage this. And subhanAllah, I think this is maybe an opportunity for all of us, as Fatima just mentioned earlier, that we are forced to adjust, but this is an opportunity that we may not, and especially for us a lot, in Europe at the moment, we either working from home or of course studying from home. And in a way that we are given more time, so we are less commuting, we are basically less going out, eating out, or visiting friends and so on. And in a way that we actually given this opportunity to invest this time at home for Ramadan while we doing our other work. And subhanAllah, I was reflecting on this last night, and I realized that we, in a way, we do not need to be in a specific time or space to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think this is very important for us. So we don't need to go physically to a mosque in order to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to now bring the mosque into our homes and our hearts. And we need, as you reminded us, that to be, of course, Rabbani, and remember that, subhanAllah, Yusuf alayhi salam, and always, this is something I was reflecting on last night. He went through a lot of challenges, and from inside the well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him a solution, as we all know. He was saved. And from inside the prison, he basically came out to lead, one of the greatest, nations at the time. While in a prison, he was basically not passive, not negative, not basically blaming the time and the space and the people around him. He was active. He was basically reaching to those people around him and doing, as we call it, the da'wah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talking to them. And while reaching out to them, this has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used it as a reason for him to get out of prison and to become the, what we call it, the prime minister of the time, and to basically lead one of the greatest nations. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam always, when he used to have difficulties before the, before he became prophet and during it, he used to go where? To the cave. And inside the cave, reflecting and connecting privately with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a reminder for all of us that we don't, and this is something we need to be careful about, sometimes we export or we outsource our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with others or through others. And our deen is not about this. Because we all remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. If my servant asks you about me, I'm nearby. No connection here, no third person. Always nearby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us. So we look at the youth of Al-Kahf. They were in a kahf for 300 something years because of their belief. We look at the story of Yunus alayhi salam inside the whale and calling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the dua we always need, all of us to always say, Subhanaka la ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min adh-dhalimin. And we look at, the Musa alayhi salam, he was in the coffin when he was sent and his mom dropped him in the river, right? So the space for us shouldn't be the limitation. The space for us, we are not like a mobile networks, by the way. Sometimes we have a good reception and sometimes we don't, depends on the physical space. The network of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always on and does not need any kind of connections. Jazakumullah khair.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad Fadi. That's actually really interesting. And you've raised some great points. The fact that the space is not really important and should not be an obstacle to us connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think I'm seeing our Facebook page and YouTube, we have some questions. So maybe we move now to the questions because we have some people asking. Okay, we have one question from YouTube from Hiba Latrish. Ramadan is a holy month that we cherish and wait for. How can we be productive spiritually, make the most of it when we are busy at this particular time with studies and work?
This is needed development also.
Yeah. But actually, before this question, we have to give the floor to Ilyas to answer our last question, because we started with Fatima and then we went to Ustad Fadi and now we have Ilyas. So Ilyas, please give us answer and then.
To be honest, I was quite happy that you had skipped me because I had very little to add after Fatima and Ustad Fadi. I think, I'm someone who definitely thrives off of social interaction during Ramadan. I know myself. For me, the mosque, the family, sort of the social fabric that comes with Ramadan is extremely important for me. So it's confronting, of course, to be in the situation we find ourselves in now. But I think what Ustad Fadi said really sums it all up, that the fulfillment of our obligation is not contingent on any of these factors, right? And I think this is the beauty of our religion, and we can really use this month to intensify our bonds with the Creator and in extension with the creation. But maybe I can try answer Heba's question that she asked on Facebook. I'm someone who's currently also working full time during this pandemic. I think I have the luxury, thank God, to work from home. But what has helped me immensely to sort of maintain this quote unquote productivity is that I structure my day around the 5 prayers. And I try to attach a specific element of Ramadan productivity to each single prayer. So, and again, I do this because I'm working full time throughout the week, so I cannot sort of use a whole afternoon and read Quran. I simply do not have that luxury. I wish I could. So what I do is I just attach an additional time frame for an activity of Ramadan productivity to each prayer. And this actually gives me somewhat of a perfect timetable I need, because whether it's Ramadan or not, you're supposed to be doing these prayers regardless, right? And for instance, I mean, with the Fajr prayer, I'll attach sort of a portion of dhikr or Quran memorization, and then with Dhuhr, I'll do 15 minutes of a podcast or a lecture online. Which, I mean, now, mashallah, like we've been offered countless lectures and podcasts online, so we have no excuse for that. And what I think is important to realize is to try figure out when is best to do what activity, because I know by the time I reach Asr, I'm tired, I've worked the whole day, I'm hungry probably, so I'll try to do something that is slightly more relaxing. And then in the weekends and in the last 10 days of Ramadan, I try intensify this effort. So this allows me to maintain sort of my regular working schedule with the embassy, and at the same time have this Ramadan productivity be part of my schedule as well. I don't know if that's any help practically.
Thank you, Ilyas, for your answer. Does Fatima or Ustad Fadi want to add and answer Hiba's question?
Come on, Fatima, go for it.
I was going to give you the floor, Ustad Fadi. I think one of the things to add to Hiba's question, I think sometimes we forget that the work we do, whether it's study or work, is also a form of ibadah. So while some of us, because specifically I know like some people also may have exams coming up soon, and I love what Ilyas said around placing something small, like throughout our salah or something, or even throughout different times that suit us, but ensuring that we are creating something there. But I think ultimately it's like, you know, من سلك, like if we look at the saying, it's like من سلك طريقا من سلك طريقا إلى العلم يسر الله له طريقا إلى الجنة. So whoever takes a path in knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open a path to them to paradise. I think in those things we have to ensure, okay, yes, it's difficult, it's stressful, I have all these exams coming in, but how do I ensure the thing that I'm doing, even if it's that time of stress, to place it purely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when I'm doing that, it's connecting, whether it's like, let's say for example, I'm doing I have a little bit of 5 minutes or something, my tongue becomes like in dhikr. So it's the things that we can actually do, effective things that we can do that may not necessarily need us to get up and like move away from our surrounding, but even like sometimes even getting up to take a little bit of a stroll and then doing istighfar or doing tasbih or dhikr in whatever way that will allow us to develop and build a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even during stressful times, I think what always really helps me is like, and I know I continuously always say that, is talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if he's your friend, right? Speak to him, open up to him, tell him where your struggles are, what difficulties you're facing. And I think how stressed you are, how overwhelming things are for you. And I think in that it eases that, because the whole point of this is also to connect spiritually with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we begin to connect in everything we do, then I think we've ticked a very important goal for us. And sometimes there's a pressure, let's say for example, about, oh, we have to do a khatma in the Quran or feeling, but it's not about the khatma per se, I believe. I think it's about what we're gaining. So it's like, even if I put a specific time for me, like 10 minutes in the morning where I'm just reading like half a page of Quran, or like also, even if I'm not reading, I'm understanding the translation of this ayah. That is fulfilling, and that's fulfilling to the soul in it as well. So with that, I think it's just adding to that and then ensuring that, okay, yes, how do everything that I do encompasses and looks at the bigger goal, and that is pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in anything we do, we are pleasing and we are connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And du'as, because I can only, like, I've been a student before and that pressure kicks in, so I'm like, oh, I feel you guys. And specifically even during this, I think it's ensuring that, okay, how can I feel that what I'm doing is also contributing towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and contributing towards what I'm built here, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought me down here.
Thank you, Fatima, for your answer. Let's see Ustad Fadi, his answer on Hiba's question, inshallah.
I think I would just add for all my my dear brothers and sisters a reminder that we really need to make sure that we grab a personal gain from this month. And I always used to remind my brothers and sisters about this, even when you go to Rawiyah Masjid and so on, dedicate a personal connection. As Fatima touched us with this word, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you talk to him as your friend, and he's basically the best of friends to have on every day. And now, for example, at home, we really need to make sure that we're building this small jama'ah and we maintain it as much as possible, especially when we miss the big jama'ah. But at the same time, create this space and time for you where you can, after like, after iftar, or even after the tarawih with the family, or go to your room, as I say, sneak into your room, and have, before Fajr maybe, and so on, have a special space and time for you to talk and to call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to pray. Even if it's 2 rak'ah, just before Fajr, 2 rak'ah, and subhanAllah, you will see the difference, and it will make a lot of difference to a lot of things. But at the same time, for those who are really busy, as like Ilyas and the student we have who are structure the day that suits you, not structure the day that suits me, because as we spoke earlier, that what a plan and a program suits you is different to other people. So structure it in a good way. And subhanAllah, when we look, and this is beautiful, things that Ilyas reminded us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us 5 prayers, and in a way that we can plan our day around them and connect our productivity and the processes with them. And I would say that, which Fatima said earlier, that بورك لأمتي في بكورها, always there is a barakah in the study and work and whatever you do, is especially, you pray Fajr and you sit down, that hour or 2 after Fajr, they're more like 5 hours during the day. I tried it before, probably many of you tried it. It's quiet time, good time, you fresh, but as long as, of course, you slept bit, gave bit of sleep before that during the night. After Fajr, you can be very productive and be very useful, inshallah. Both from reading, even sometimes chapter, or even revising, and inshallah for your exams.
Exactly. Also, I would add something on this is it really doesn't matter that we pray, for example, 8 rak'ah tarawih or 16 or whatever. It's important that we are constant with, maybe like pray 2 rak'ah of tarawih or 2 rak'ah of qiyam al-layl, but constant throughout the whole month, and this will help us like build the let's say build up the habit of it, but also give at the same time, being able to give time to ourselves better than giving nothing. And I would also add that maybe like the environment would help. We are not able to go to the mosques anymore, specifically during this Ramadan, but nothing will stop us from creating our own little angle in the room, corner, putting some some candles or some let's say something that remind us of the mosque itself and bring us to that spiritual environment. And I think it's specifically something useful for people who have siblings or have kids, because we want to make them feel that Ramadan is something that is really special. Why not put in some balloons and put in some colors in the house during this this blessed month as well? So I'm wary of the time because we still have more or less 10 minutes. We have some questions, and then we're going to ask you our very last question, and inshallah we will conclude. So we have a question from Abdurrahman that is asking, how do you ensure productivity when it comes to acts of worship during Ramadan, especially with being in lockdown and might at sometimes feel lazy? Any tips there? I think we've covered more or less this question, but any one of you would like to add and answer this question?
I think just a reminder, like, if Yusuf alayhi salam, he had the excuse to be lazy in the prison and to do nothing, and no Wi-Fi, no mobile, no internet, and nothing. So, but despite this, he wasn't lazy to also. So he actually really always pushed himself, because he was a man of a mission. And this is something for all of our brothers and sisters. You are a man or a woman with a mission. You have a mission in this life. We are not just a number, and we want to make a difference, and positive difference, to our community, to our ummah, to the world we live in. And there is no excuse to be lazy in this kind of blessed months, either from, increase your activity and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase your activity and productivity to do with your work and your studies. And I think if any of our young brothers and sisters, they think they're not taking and making the best out of this time, I think they need to reflect, because we may not have this time again, that when we are at home and we have all the time to do, to make a difference to ourselves first of all and to the rest of our world.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad Fadi. Now, actually, we have different questions that are similar, and yes.
Okay,
would you like to add something on this? Sorry.
I think what Ustad Fadi said is very critical and very important, and kind of like being able to self-evaluate. But I think it's also important sometimes to find a means of how we can remove that negative energy that may come because we're locked in, and each one of us has a different way of doing it. And I think when we connect internally, it becomes really easier then to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to connect with our with individuals even at home, and being able to fulfill our ibadat. So I think one of the things I probably add is finding an outlet for yourself. So some of us, for example, I know before I used to journal, and it used to help me a lot, and I think for a while I left that, and then I realized, okay, why is this stuff buckling up to me or whatever? I'm just jotting it down or something. For some of us, it may be like a little bit of exercise. For some of us, it may be like art or a different hobby that we take on. But I think spiritually connecting is like, it's really critical during that time, and finding an outlet, but also asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think we forget the power of dua and the importance that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to spiritually connect with Him. And that's something that some of us find it difficult. We try the first day, the second day, the third day, and it becomes really difficult. But if we're consistent and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that, then it becomes something that we can hopefully, inshallah, because it's ultimately a thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us, but we have to work for it. And in working for it, then we ensure and we value it a lot more than if it was just given to us on a silver plate. Now you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's the work that we do and the connection that we build with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that takes us through this journey, and it becomes something that we value and appreciate a lot more.
Yeah, subhanAllah, I think it's something gradual. As you said, it's not something that someone will give us, directly, but it's something that we should be constantly working on. Ilyas, would you like to add something on this, inshallah?
What I do, I mean, I think Abdurrahman's question is a question that we all struggle with. Just a very simple, practical tip that I have to remain productive is I have what you could call maybe accountability buddies, or people who kind of hold me or keep me in check. So I've agreed with specific individuals, for instance, as well as people in my family, that we will be following a specific lecture series, right? Or reading a specific section of the Quran. And then I've made this commitment. So this, not only is this quite a lot of fun, but also it kind of pushes you to stay on schedule, and it also gives you a mutual topic to discuss and ponder on, because you'll then discuss it with the respective person. And I feel like, okay, if I don't follow the next lecture, then the person I agreed with is not going to be on the same, so it kind of keeps me in check as well, especially because I'm currently living alone. So this is what helps me greatly. But it's these small practical tips that you try to put in to your day to maintain a level of productivity.
Yeah, mashallah, very interesting. I actually started experience this myself, trying to agree on certain tasks that like we should do together with someone else, and so on. So they hold us accountable and we hold them accountable. And this is a way, it's actually a practical tip to kind of be productive in your day, but also in your week, in your month. But we've talked about the practical tips, and our last question is a question that a lot of audience members here are asking, and it's, what are some actually practical tips and practical advices for being productive that you could offer to our audience today, based on your own experience and on your expertise? Let's do the same round we started with. Let's do Ustad Fadi, Fatima, and Ilyas.
I think Ilyas just reminded us about one of the tools he's using, which is basically the bodies scheme, and also something he mentioned earlier, that structuring his day around 5 prayers, which is amazing. And I, as I said, each one of us need to really set up something that suits their time, their availabilities, and their motivation in order to succeed. But I will just add one thing is, subhanallah, today is the 3rd day of Ramadan for some of us who started on Friday. I mean, this is, subhanallah, unbelievable that actually Ramadan just started a few hours ago. And now we are nearly finished the 3rd day, and is going to go, like our life is going to go extremely fast. And it is an opportunity for us to make sure that we don't miss the opportunity. Will be my first, the most important reminder about the best tool to benefit and to be productive. Just be careful of missing it, because it is a small sample of our life and a drill of how our life is going fast.
Thank you, Ustad Fadi. Fatima?
I think just in terms of I think there's a lot of tips in what we said previously, but I think what's really important and how we can bring that together is, I believe kind of like putting bam, 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 like things, is sitting with yourself and realizing, okay, what do I want to focus on this Ramadan? What is important for me in terms of what's important for me is really different, like we said, what's important to Dr. Fadi, Ustaz Fadi, to Ilyas, to Nurhan. So each one of us is completely different. So I think the first thing that we need to do is just sit and contemplate internally. And what is it that we want to achieve during this Ramadan? So maybe consider, like we said, أحب الأعمال إلى الله أقلها وإن. So the best of deeds are the ones that are small, consistent. So what is it that we want to do? What is the goal that we want to achieve? Do I want to maybe reflect on the Quran a little bit more? Do I want to, I don't know, increase my dhikr a little bit more? So each one of us will have a different, unique thing. But also understanding the uniqueness of this opportunity is that we can actually talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, cry fi jawfil layl, really repent to Allah, be there to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and repent and ask Him for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the strength to be able to this. The third thing I think is always throughout this whole process is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, making dua. And I think similar to what Amu Fadi said and Ilyas said, create have somewhere where you can put yourself and hold yourself accountable, whether it's internally, whether it's someone that's becoming a mentor to you, or whether it's a group buddy that you're doing. So that way you're ensuring that the productivity increases, and find yourself an outlet, because throughout it's going to be really difficult. It gets difficult at times. So whether you have the flexibility within some countries where we're able to just go out and stroll for a small walk, just observe the nature, or whether it's internally within ourselves, whether it's just taking a bit of time off for ourselves, just kind of doing something that we also enjoy. And in that way, then our time, once we've done that and we've put effort into that, it becomes easier then to be able to put effort somewhere else.
Thank you, Fatima, for your practical tips. Last but not least, Ilyas.
Yeah, I think I gave my 2 main practical tips that I use because I'm still working full time. So sort of structuring my productivity around the 5 prayers, as well as having some form of accountability with friends and family. Again, I do want to emphasize that, the notion of Islamic productivity is not similar to sort of a capitalist notion of productivity, which is about sort of efficiency and these kind of things. And I think lastly, because I've given my tips, I think what is important, and I think what we need to realize is that we are not all affected by this pandemic in the same way. I have the luxury to actually work from home, something which many day laborers, for instance, do not have, right? So if your sheer survival is dependent on you going outside of the house to make your daily income, this pandemic hits you completely different than someone like me who has the luxury to stay at home, right? So I think just an awareness and a consciousness of the different sort of difficulties that people are facing, and thereby then hopefully that will lead to an increase in our dua, an increase in our zakat, an increase in our sadaqah, and that's really it from my side.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. That was our last question. It was a pleasure to host this session. It was a pleasure to be inspired from all of you. Thanks to Ustad Fadi Itani, Fatima Halawa, and Ilyas Shirali for joining us today and sharing their experience. Again, it was a pleasure, and we hope that this session was beneficial to everyone that is watching it and will watch it in the next days, because this session is gonna be available on Facebook and also on YouTube as well. They are going to be saved. This Ramadan, you can support FEMYSO's work representing and defending Muslim rights at the highest levels and developing hundreds of youth as well across Europe every year. We are joining a match launch funded competition at Launch Good, platform for organizations with the highest number of donors, aiming on targeting days 10 and 13 of Ramadan. So please tune and keep following FEMYSO for the different opportunities. Another opportunity that we'll mention is the Ramadan auction 2020, and your items will have the opportunity to be featured and to be advertised online in FEMYSO's social media. And with that being said, thanks for listening. Thank you for being with us. I would like to remind our audience that this is a live stream. FEMYSO Now is a live stream and a podcast series that will be continuing to be aired every Sunday and every Wednesday. So thank you for listening, and see you next Wednesday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Alaikum.